That's pretty good. I did some relax. Not really. I'm like writing a book, so I mean we kind of relax, but not really. So it just depends.
I hear you.
Yeah. So a couple things. So how are things going with you as far as the leads? I think this week might have been a little bit slower than the previous one. Brought people you having good conversations on the phone?
I had one today with another gal in New York. She
Nice.
is, yeah, she even referred me to a group here in Florida with another Hispanic
Hmm.
professional bookkeeping, and which is good. And she said that we will reengage the first week of the year, the first, no, the second week of the year to go over how much I will charge and how can she offload some of her work onto me, which is promising.
Hmm. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. So okay. So since it's just you and me right now, let's maybe take a look at how you're doing those 15-minute calls with them to see how we can get either a little bit more speed to them want to like work with you as well as building more and more trust and stuff, okay?
Okay, good. This one took me 17 and she was very open to it. It's just, again, the end of the year. There's not much going on, but she was actually looking for someone when my email came. But yes,
Okay.
let's go over because if I can improve to get closure and to get traction, that will be excellent.
Yeah. So let's do two. Okay. So what are you using whenever you're calling a lead? Do you have like a script that you've been thinking about using from like the CPA calls?
I kind of use yours, but I take the conversation more so as a conversation rather than a script. And especially with this lady, it was kind of where what did she needed and if I can offer it.
So
So
yeah, why don't
I
we
should
just
use a
role play
script,
the
right?
thing? Um, you don't necessarily have to use a script. It's more I would be thinking because all a script is just mimicking a normal conversation, right? So how I would probably do it, notepad. I would have it more where it's just like checklists that you need to check off. Right.
Okay.
So things I need to know or speak about in the call, right? My price. Um,
And I need to get over the hump of my price because although she didn't ask, she said her customer base can afford. And she said she only worked with people with half a million to $1 million. So she can
nice.
charge. Yeah, she has that very down to a T. But I need to work on that. I need to be more confident when I'm asked price rather
Mhm.
than you know.
Yeah, and I guess let me ask you this question. So when you say confident about price, is it confident that you that the work you do is worth the money you're asking? Or is it more if they say no to you?
Yes, they will say no to me because the work that I do is worth asking for. And speaking to Clara, because that's her name, Clara, she brought an aha moment. She said, I only work with people with half a million to $1 million so they can pay me. And if I institute that, if I think if you cannot pay me from the get-go, it's like move on next.
Mm.
And she was very succinct about it. She had no shame, no negative energy, nothing. You cannot pay me? Nothing. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Well, a couple things when it comes to that stuff. I mean, money is a very weird thing, right? Because like people, especially if you're talking to business owners, they can go from like broke to like cash flow positive very quickly and then pay you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I almost wouldn't take price personal, right? I've never take any kind of like money thing personally. Like you almost can't even care, to be honest with you,
Okay.
about like price. So like for me, for example, when I was getting started, I would almost make it like a game to see like how high of a price could I like say or put out, um, and then kind of like read the reaction. Like a lot of people like when you have to kind of turn it into a game, like turn it into a game of how well can I do my process, regardless of the response that they give. And that's really like the secret to a lot of this stuff. So let's kind of practice that. So we can start the conversation. Um let's say that you sent me an email. I said I was interested, and then you called. So ring ring. Hello?
Hi. This is Ida. I'm returning your phone call. So normally they tell me to call between da da da. We
Who's this
communicated
again?
earlier. They asked me to call. Like I'm
Wait,
available
who is this again?
between Ida from
Okay.
HD
Oh,
Bookkeeping.
HD
We
bookkeeping.
communicated, yes, we communicated earlier in the week via email. I'm following up our email conversation.
Oh yeah, I remember that email. I saw it and I was really interested to see if there are any ways that we can kind of work together. Yeah, so
Sure.
can you tell me a little bit about like, you and what you do?
Okay, I'm a bookkeeper, virtual bookkeeper based out of Florida. I normally work with QuickBooks Online, and we can get started from very small tasks until end of the month tasks, doing anything to get the books done on time and accurately foremost. That's
Okay.
um that's what I say.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So I think that's one way that we can kind of go. So what I would do is, and what we have done is actually write out what you're going to be, how you're going to at least describe yourself. So let me show you, for example, what we did with Rick. Do I have this thing up? Things. So like for me, for example, I have like this just giant document of like different things I have to like fix across both businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just so let me find this one thing. What touch points? Says. So I would do like copy, copy of, let's call it CPA attractive character. Okay, so in marketing and in sales, there's something called an attractive character. Basically, what that means is that people don't necessarily just care about what you do, they really care about the person who they're working with. You're right. So when you deploy your services like this and this, I mean that's cool and all. The thing that's really going to cause someone to move forward in a lot of cases is like just talking about yourself. For example, for Rick, he was having a lot of trouble getting CPAs and stuff to like really understand his experience. He's a little bit newer to the industry, so he's been like in bookkeeping for about a year. So for him, he's an engineer by trade, right? So basically, how we designed the story was number one, he started off in engineering, and he was like I think a mechanical engineer for a long time, and he started getting more opportunities at his job because he started displaying his ability to communicate and like lead teams. So they started giving me more and more responsibilities, and then some of those responsibilities were like bookkeeping. I just really started falling in love with that. I just really enjoyed doing that. So word started getting around that I was good at what I did because I'm very detail oriented and I'm really good at problem solving, just understanding the numbers. So people started asking if I can help them with their books, and I opened my own business as a result of that. So then what I started also doing is that CPAs started wanting to refer work to me. It's like, because when you have more connections, the people just start getting around, people start reaching out. So now I reach out to, and I'm reaching out to you to see if we can maybe establish a partnership together.
Huh, yeah, that's
Cool.
a complete twist.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So what did this
Mhm.
do? Basically,
It
what it
just
does is
tells
it
you
talks
who
about
you
like,
are.
yeah, right. So now the person's connected. So like if you ever look at like my video stuff, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't do this as much anymore, but like what I used to do a lot of was like, I got started my business in 2015, and like, when I started, like it was very hard. The most money I made in like the first 6 months was like, $2,300, and like 1,700 that came from a cleanup with a 3 year. Like it's very specific the way that I describe my story and my background. The reason why is because like that's practice. It's not just coming off the top of my head. It might sound like it comes off the top of my head, but it's like I've said that probably 600 times, if not more. Um, so I think the first thing for you is let's kind of design that real quick. So I'm gonna give you this copy link. I'm gonna post inside the chat. And you can kind of save that for your notes. We can build that together.
Yeah, the more I practice and I refine my introductory speech, and I like it that I'm keeping it to today was 17 minutes, but mostly it's 15 to keep people
Hmm.
engaged, not to get them bored. But the more I
Yeah.
practice and get that refined, I think it will be successful.
Yeah, it's more like you just have to get so good at the stuff, it becomes like a state of boredom. That's really the key. Um, it's like you have to practice so hard that you can start almost being above the conversation. So like sometimes like when you're talking to someone, if you've done something a lot, your mouth might be saying certain words, but your brain is like thinking, it's thinking ahead, it's thinking, where do I want to go? What information do I need to get from this person? It's like your mouth is doing one thing, but your brain is thinking so far ahead. That's
So
kind of
far
where,
ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to get.
Yeah, I could relate to that when it comes to human resources. When it comes to certain things, I hear you, but I'm thinking.
No, yeah. So
Mhm.
let's start your story. So this should be very similar to your group introduction post on Facebook, actually. The group introduction post is actually a really good way that you can actually use it to introduce yourself anywhere. So you can make a networking event. If you look at or listen to that video with like Audrey, both the
Mhm.
35 per hour and the $75 per hour one, in both cases she talked about her story slightly differently, but she's talked about her story, right? So first thing for you, background is in HR. Um, I guess so. How did you get into bookkeeping?
I for the longest I was an office manager, a bookkeeper in Cleveland, and then you asked me how do I get into HR because my finance is my major. I landed in HR because my boss thought I was better with people. That he was having a hard time managing his human resources, and
Mhm.
fast forward, and I decided to start doing taxes again. So I was doing taxes, and two of my customers had tiny small businesses, so I went back to doing bookkeeping. And now I do taxes, but I want to get more into bookkeeping. So that's how I went back to doing bookkeeping. I always been in the doing taxes around, but the bookkeeping is kind of especially the QuickBook Online. I want to explore more because I like it. I know how to do it. So it's just one thing led to another. But it's been a few years since I've been doing books and whatnot. I worked in HR. I worked first bookkeeping and then HR. Office manager, if you would. Long-winded intro, sorry.
Well, that's kind of what we want. so much. I mean, it makes you more real, right? So it's um
I can if I can sense that I'm very close, but I know it's work, but I can sense it's just like I've come farther than I could have been months ago.
yeah. Oftentimes oftentimes too, the biggest thing is like first creating chaos on the phones, like getting on the phone. And then there comes that point to where like it clicks for you. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like do you see like Henry on the Thursday night calls?
Yes,
Um
he lives in Canada, right?
yeah. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
he had like it was at least 15 calls in a row that were like no's, right? Like 15 sales calls with people who like should have paid him money. And like they ended up paying him money actually, like they came back around like they said they would, but it's just like he was just getting frustrated because there's like so much chaos. It's like, why are these guys not closing? Why are these guys not closing? Just like once they start closing, they start closing.
Yeah, and
So
I can sense that. I can sense that for me.
yeah, I mean that lady today, when she said 2 weeks, like that's a real thing. Like the problem with CPAs, like if CPAs had a sense of urgency, they would be like basically the ultimate partners. I think some people who are better partners are CFOs and financial advisors. The reason why is because like
Okay.
financial advisors, a lot of times like they're dealing with like people who own a business, like wealthy individuals, and those people need like bookkeepers. So like when I do my CPA or my referral partner campaigns, it's CPAs for subcontracting, and it's um what is called financial advisors for referrals, and then CFOs for kind of like a mixture of like both.
They target different market and they have a different sense of urgency, right? Because if you're a financial
Yeah,
advisor, you have to have a different sense of urgency because
they're
time is of an
they're more
essence
like
when it comes to
hunters.
trade. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're more hunters versus CPA or yeah, CPAs in some cases, since it's seasonal, a lot of the way they do work can be very seasonal, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It just does make it a little bit harder for us to move on what we need to move really quickly. So yeah, and just like that's the thing I would do. Okay, so yeah, so I guess that's basically your attractive story. So for the longest time, I was an office manager, um,
Mm-hmm.
doing accounting and bookkeeping, and my boss in corporate started actually slid me over to HR because he felt that I was better with people, because they were experiencing some problems with personnel and just like maintaining staff. And I really enjoyed that. And then what I started doing was on the side, I started doing taxes. So, I had customers for a while, and two of them started their own like small business. And they asked me to do like their bookkeeping for them. I really actually enjoyed that. I never would have thought that I could do it on my own. So now what I do is both the bookkeeping and the taxes. And I got referred to a CPA in my local area, and we had a pretty good rapport. So I started searching for, other people to partner with as well. So recently I started searching for someone else to partner with since I'm moving more towards the bookkeeping side, and I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
to refer some of the tax work that comes my way.
And I told Clara that too, that I'm willing to relinquish the taxes. Because while I
Mhm.
enjoy it a lot, I rather just focus on the bookkeeping. And if those bookkeeping customers should like that, would like me to do their taxes, I'll be more than happy to. But the tax business is so cyclical and so ah, it is chaotic. So I don't want to drive in chaos anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So let's restart the conversation. Using this document that we have with your attractive character.
Okay.
So, hello, this is Bryce. Who is this?
This is Ida from HD Bookkeeping and Taxes. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm
Okay, so
following
so
up
so
and
pause. So pause.
okay.
So if you're ever doing a cold call,
Mm-hmm.
don't do the phrase like "How are you?" Because in some
Okay.
cases they're going to think that it's a sales pitch, which it is, but it's not really. It's more we schedule a meeting. So I would say, "Hey, this is Ira. Um, I sent you an email and you said you were interested in booking a call to see if there's a chance we can refer work to each other. Is this still a good time to speak?" They're gonna say
Oh,
yes,
I like that.
right?
Mm-hmm. I like that. Is it still a good time?
Yeah, yeah, it's still a good time to speak.
Okay. Great. I'm following up on our conversation we had earlier. Um, you expressed interest in possibly partnering with me regarding offloading some work out of your plate.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw your email come through. I read it for a brief second, so I didn't really get to see the whole thing. But I wanted to kind of, give you a couple minutes to hear you out.
Oh, sure. I am a virtual bookkeeper based out of Florida. Let me see, it's been 20 something years between corporate America since I decided to venture on my own. For years, I was an office manager slash bookkeeper, and at the time, my employer asked me that I was better with the human resources. We were having high turnover and a lot of issues. Before I moved, but I kept my tax clients, and two of them decided to go into small businesses, which I helped them with the books. And since I just kept that on the side, up until recently, I brought that to the forefront, and I am now asking or searching for other partners to work along with. Hence, I send you an email.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, I guess what services do you offer? You said you do tax and bookkeeping?
Yes, I do. I'm inclining more towards bookkeeping. However, I do have some clients that I am still doing their taxes. But yes, I do bookkeeping. I use QuickBook Online. I do from monthly reconciliation all the way down to closing your books or closing their books at the end of the month, making sure the information is accurate and on time.
Okay. So, okay, then pause. Let's break character. So, how I'd move the conversation. Does this happen a lot where it's like you tell and then it just kind of like hangs?
Well, no, the conversation normally for the few that I've gotten have been fluid. I mean, they move very nicely
Okay.
without awkward silence, which I
So,
like.
yeah, so what we can do from here, insert attractive characters from above. Also, I would then say there's generally two ways that I like to work with CPAs. The main way is through subcontracting because I have a pretty good capacity to do a lot of bookkeeping work. Do you generally do any bookkeeping services or do you mostly only do taxes? Or I would probably ask them
hmm I'm
what
right. I'm taking
services,
notes of what you
yeah,
talking.
what two services do you offer? Right? I'm going to put this in parentheses. You want to know this in order to know whether they want to subcontract or refer, right? If they basically go, oh, we only refer out our bookkeeping services, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Versus, oh, we have bookkeeping, but we're not really specialized in it. That's going to give you more emphasis to kind of know whether you want to introduce subcontracting or referrals.
Referral, where to take the conversation to.
Yeah. Um, when they ask price, then say, 75 per. I would say this. So my flat rates have broken down to about 100 per hour when I work directly with my clients. However, I know that you have to make a margin as well. Um, would you be willing to subcontract out for 75 per hour? Pause, pause, and wait for response. So I think a key thing here, when you say 75 per hour, like don't care about the response because 75 per hour is not the real price that you're trying to get to at the end, right?
Mm-hmm. Talk regardless, say it regardless of the outcome because there's always room for negotiation. I just don't express that.
Not even that necessarily. So some because here's the cool thing. Some people are gonna say yes to 75 an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing also there too is like you need to be able to judge someone's response, right? So we're not thinking like it's either a good thing or a bad thing. I just need to see what it is. Are they calm? Are they like, oh, that's a lot of money? Or like, oh, I would never pay that high. We need to know what it is. So that gives us more room to actually start the conversation in the negotiation phase. So that way it's going to take a little bit of pressure off of you. Because like, how do you generally do it? Do you generally say it's $50 per hour?
No, I say it's fee based upon what you charge. We can it's a
Oh,
percentage. I don't say that's what I'm having problem with. I haven't
okay.
established that.
Yeah, okay. So say it like this. This will give you more of like a set thing. Okay. So there's a couple things that's happening inside of this sentence. $100 per hour says basically states that you have other clients and people are willing to pay you that much money for your flat rate. The month we can say our monthly flat rates break down break down to about $100 per hour. I work directly with my clients. However, I know that you have to make a margin as well. Would you be willing to subcontract out work to me for $75 per hour? And then just pause, just sit there. And then when they say yes or they say no, okay, now we can respond accordingly.
And send a final and go and know where I can move from or to based upon that.
Yeah, no problem. I am civil because I want this to be win-win for both of us. Um, but uh, yeah. So this is basically gonna hear what their counteroffer is.
And I,
And
I don't I don't respond immediately. I send an email, right? When if I accept their offer, how does what would be the next step?
it's a
They
phone
say,
call. This,
hmm?
this is on the phone call.
Okay, in the phone call, I just say yes or no and send an agreement right after, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, no. So this is all during the phone call. That's why we're waiting for the response, right? So, oh, 75 that's a huge amount. Okay, no problem. I'm pretty flexible because I want this to be a win-win for both of us. What number are you thinking is reasonable based on your price points for bookkeeping? And then you're gonna hear their counter offer. In a lot of cases, like people will try and drop about like $25 per hour. I mean, if they say at least above $50 per hour, I'd probably take it just because that's on track for 104,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes below, that's not a problem if they want to do it below that price, because then you just like subcontract it out to someone else. Like if it's super low, then you could like give it to my team of staff accountants. So don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like you have to have a certain amount of money. It's more just like I would try and get the foot in the door for the first one. Then after that, you just keep increasing your prices for now on for our partnership we have.
And yeah, just to get the ball rolling, to get the energy moving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. And then based on their counter offer, you can also start asking questions like, okay, 35 is really low compared to what I generally charge. I guess like what is, if you don't mind me asking, what is your margin on your bookkeeping? Like what are you charging per hour? And they'll probably say like, oh, 100 hour or XYZ. In some cases, like if they're being squirrely, then they're generally, probably not going to want to work with you. But in a lot of cases, if they do want to work with you and like they really like you, they'll kind of like break down the numbers for you. And then you can understand, okay, well, that makes sense based on that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm liking it that you are, because I'm taking notes, but I like that you keeping it like the flow of the conversation in that document, because I could
Yeah.
memorize it and actually rehearse it.
Yeah.